The current year is 2025. This is a shocker to everyone listening, we know. However, some of us don't really understand just what that means. Looking at the timeline of history, the last 100 years have been particularly special. 100 years ago, the greatest conflict in human history at that time wasn't even over for a decade. 2 decades after that, the world had been rocked by an even greater conflict, with even more horrific crimes and tragedies. The first modern missiles were invented, the first jet engines, the first large-scale radar systems, long-distance two-way radios, and the world's first color television broadcast. Most importantly, perhaps, the world's first atomic bomb. In the time since, we've gotten things into orbit. We've made supersonic planes, we've mapped the human genome, and eradicated some illnesses completely from the face of the planet. We've begun reversing desertification in Africa by foresting over 30 million hectares of the Sahel. By 2028, provided funding comes in, a lab in Barcelona will begin human trials on an artificial womb system that promises to allow the potential for human babies to be brought to term and born without the need of a human surrogate. And 100 years ago, we wouldn't have even been able to fathom that. Science has overwhelmingly changed our world and altered the way we look at things even in our day-to-day lives. We hold today, in our hands, access to the collective information of all humankind. And the same device that brings us that data also has the power to help us remember things, save special moments, remind us of important obligations, teach us new things, and offer us helpful suggestions and recipes for our upcoming holiday feasts. And yet, there are people nowadays who continue to argue on, ad nauseum, about the same old things. Recently, we find our patience is wearing thin with one such subject, and that subject is abortion. We live in the 21st century, and we have all of this technology to solve our problems, but people still squabble, constantly, every day, across all platforms, about the moral variables of abortion. We won't cast judgment on either side, as we've said before, because our concern is to find the solution to this perennial problem, not to continue the conflict. Our concern is to find a true compromise to this age-old issue between the two sides of the aisle. And we think, here at the New Bull Moose, that we have it. We think we've got a proper compromise between pro-life and pro-choice. It's not going to be comfortable for everyone involved, and it's not necessarily going to be the solution everyone will have wanted. But it can be the solution that we, as a nation, choose to ensure social stability and ease the concerns of those on both sides. First and foremost, let's address the concerns of our fellow Americans in the conservative demographics. We hear, near constantly, that abortion is murder, that it is the taking of an innocent life. We hear them tell us that abortion is killing babies, and that no amount of bodily autonomy gives people the right to kill someone. We don't personally agree with this sentiment, as we feel that the entire subject requires a greater degree of nuance than most conservatives are willing to admit. But also, we do not begrudge the position. We can't say truthfully that we find abortion to be a pleasant topic to ruminate on. Contrary to what some might say, we don't personally think anyone really likes to focus on such a thing unless it is part of their job. This is reasonable. Abortion simply is not a comfortable topic. But we cannot be afraid of it, that being said. If you find this to be the termination of a life, rather than merely the termination of a pregnancy, that is your perspective. And the fact that you have that perspective is beyond debate. Maybe the foundation of your reasoning is religious. Maybe it is purely secularly moralistic, based on your own personal positions and experiences. We aren't here to argue about that or cast aspersions based on any such positions. But we can try to find a way to empathize with that position and abate those fears. You find the termination of even unborn life intolerable. You see other options in the world and wish they would be provided before abortion was even brought up. You seek resources to keep that child alive and, presumably, wish the mother the very best as well. Fine. Let's just acknowledge this for you. We're flexible enough to accept that you will not move from this position, and we're willing to meet you on this hill, if at least only for a brief period of time, for the sake of compromise and useful thought experimentation. But first, you must meet us on our little hill. A much smaller hill, but our hill nonetheless. Our position is that some people are not ready to be parents, and some people are not willing to become parents. And we personally think it's fair to say that those people should probably not be forced to become parents, if nothing else than for the safety of the child. Pregnancy is also not a risk-free procedure. It is fraught with potential complications, and even the after effects of childbirth can be quite severe. Historically, childbirth is, after all, one of the leading causes of female death in humans. Even if a child is brought to term, many parents are simply unable to provide for these children, and it overwhelmingly detracts from the well-being and quality of life of all parties involved, sometimes so much that, throughout history, parents have been known to expose, abandon, or even sell their children into slavery. These are not things to be debated upon, but statistics that are well established and can be found by anyone, anywhere, who might have an internet connection and a capable initiation into low-grade Google Foo. Now, we understand your position that this does not justify the termination of a life. Again, let's just at least acknowledge that perhaps there are some parents out there that really shouldn't be parents, who allow the stress of life to come out in their treatment toward their children, leading to horrible abuse, maladaptive coping mechanisms, and mistreated individuals who enter adulthood with no idea of how to navigate life healthily or socially acceptably. That doesn't mean we're going to go out and start terminating lives. It means we'll acknowledge that there might be a reason for the termination of a pregnancy. But technology, by 2028, might be able to help us separate these two terms and really redefine what it is to have an abortion. If your concern is that abortion is the termination of a life, would you oppose abortion if the doctors took every precaution to preserve that life? Would it change your position if every child would be taken from the body of the mother during the abortion and directly inserted into an artificial womb? Would it be any different to you if that child was then brought to term in that artificial womb and put right into the American adoption system? You know, where you could adopt them into loving families that many conservatives insist aren't having enough children? We've heard many conservatives say that people aren't having enough kids. But what if abortion was the pipeline to, paradoxically, more children being born into the USA every year? Let's just say that the conservatives are, indeed, willing to provide for these children, that their concern really is that abortion is the termination of life, the killing of an unborn child. Again, we'll just admit to this for the sake of our political compromise, so that we can move on. In that case, this would be the answer to their concerns. Now, we'll be the first to admit, this is not a perfected technology. It will not have a 100% success rate at first. But as mentioned above, neither does pregnancy. It is not a risk-free, guaranteed process. Nothing in medicine is. In medicine, we are always doing whatever we can and getting better every day. We do everything we can to preserve the lives of those in need, the lives of those who have so much more ahead of them. And of course, we will do everything we can to save the lives of these children as well. Many will be lost in the early years, but without this initiative, those same amounts would be lost to abortion regardless. And the loss of each and every unborn child will build more research, more scientific progress, more practical results that will help to save the lives of not only every single unborn child in the future, but every resident of the United States of America through the vast technological advancements we could stand to gain by considering artificial wombs as the solution to our constant war over abortion rights and bodily autonomy. If you want to save the children, then this is a way to save the children. If you actually care about the termination of unborn lives, as so many conservatives insist at the core of their objection to abortion, this is how we make that compromise. This is us, in the New Bull Moose Party, throwing our hands into the air and admitting right now, okay, you're right. If you really want to die on that hill, that abortion is the killing of a life, we guess we'll play ball. So now that you've made your position absolutely ironclad, here's the solution. Here's how we fix that. We haven't heard any Democrats screaming it from the rooftops, so allow us to do it instead. Just dedicate more research funding and practical experimentation to the development of artificial wombs. Not only would this completely redefine abortion for the masses, but it would also provide numerous alternatives to expecting mothers experiencing horrible accidents in fear of losing their unborn children, in fear of losing their chance. But, in return, we must allow abortion access to continue. We must halt all anti-abortion legislation throughout the entirety of the country. Every aborted fetus must go into an artificial womb as soon as scientifically possible to maximize the potential to save even one more life and give us that much more data to make the process quick, easy, safe, and successful as often as possible. And we must spend more on the continued research of these technologies for the sake of our nation's medical future. And we can't dawdle, or prevaricate, moralize, or clutch our pearls over what makes us feel comfortable. The future generations of our nation deserve nothing less. At least if we're to have them. And believe us, we're not against more children in the world. We've been quite clear, in many of our videos, that our concern is that everyone at least have the opportunity to have a family, to have children. As we personally consider the capacity to have a family, to pass the torch of life onto those who may be able to carry our legacies, as part of the pursuit of happiness, which is enshrined in our Constitution. It is part of being American. So understand when we say this. We are not against the conservatives on this matter. We feel the urge every day to have a family of our own. But right now, the time is not a good one to bring new life into this world. We seek to be responsible about this, and we think everyone else should be as well. So let's work on this together. Let's make a nation where everyone is able and proud to have children if they so desire. But to do that, we have to face down some of the other side, some of the left. There is a lot of hatred going around. There is a lot of anger going back and forth. There is a lot of animosity being leveled across the aisle. This policy was designed primarily to create a compromise between the pro-life and pro-choice communities. It was made with the plan in mind of giving the conservatives no other option but to accept its logic and stand on the position they continue to make, or admit that their positions are not actually based in any legitimate concern. If they still have a serious problem with a policy that fundamentally redefines the very word abortion by ensuring that every unborn child removed in an abortion goes to term and becomes a responsible member of our society, a tax-paying member of the economy, then they're sexist. And their problems are with women having freedom over their own bodies and lives, rather than the termination of unborn children. However, we're taking the bet that most conservatives are not going to admit to that, and will acknowledge the work we've gone through to create this compromise, and they will accept it. Whenever possible, bring this up to them. At all times, exercise patience. If they really are just extremely sensitive and empathetic people who truly care for the children? Well, this is not a detrimental feature of the human experience, is it? We think it's high time we go out of our way to give the conservatives every opportunity to put their money where their mouths are. Here is the out. Here is the option. We will just give up the position that abortion doesn't terminate life, and instead pivot to technological progress to change the definition of that reality. We have the technology, we have the money, we have the societal and medical infrastructure firmly on the way, and by 2028, you can vote for the first president ever to base their campaign on using science and technology to bridge the culture gap between pro-life and pro-choice, and both preserve bodily autonomy for all and protect the unborn future generations of our country. Reach across the aisle at every stage to interrogate those on the right and see if they'll accept a system of medical policies that saves every child possible after the abortion process. Really pin them down. And if they like it, accept it. Don't go after it anymore. If they start calling out that abortion is the killing of babies, call them on it. Tell them, doesn't have to be that way. Would you accept abortion if it didn't kill the fetuses? If they say no, well, tell them their reasoning falls flat and simply move on with your life. This policy is clearly not the solution they're looking for, nor are they being honest about their position. There's nothing we can do about that with artificial wombs. But if they say yes, if they'll admit that abortion wouldn't be nearly as distasteful if we did everything we could to preserve the life of the child and bring it to term with the glory of modern technology, tell them to vote progressive. Tell them to vote David A. Gray for President of the United States of America in 2028. Because this isn't a big problem. It really isn't. We could solve all of this easily. But we need to cooperate to get things done. We need to do some things that make us uncomfortable to forge this compromise. Paraphrasing the words of the late Charlie Kirk, some losses are acceptable to ensure the safety of the rest of America. While we will lose some of the unborn in this initiative, those losses will be worth it to ensure the safety of so many millions more in the future. They'll pave the way for a stronger, brighter, healthier tomorrow, a better America for all unborn children into the future. But in order to do that, we have to stand strong. We have to stand together. You have to vote out the oligarchs and ancients who know nothing of what's actually going on among the common people. And you have to vote for the people who will give you and everyone around you what you need to prosper and have a future for your own. So vote progressive. Vote Bull Moose.